Michael, I want to actually start with Drew Brees and his announcement that he retired this offseason after 19 years in the league and actually 14 of them with the New Orleans Saints. I guess it must have been a weird feeling heading into this offseason, either not having Drew Brees on the team or not even speculating whether or not he's going to return.
Yeah, it was definitely weird. Um, yeah, I mean, I kind of just had the inkling that this was probably his last year. This past year was his last year. And it's a bummer, it's the end of an era, pretty much the entire, as far as I can remember, being a Saints fan, I've had Drew Brees as my quarterback, which is a blessing. It's gonna be crazy to see how many Saints fans end up leaving just because Drew Brees is gone now. But yeah, it's just you know what you got out of Drew Brees week in and week out, and it was a guy who was going to put you in a position to win. And now, as Saints fans, we're just kind of entering a new era where we don't really know what's going on. We don't know who's even going to be the quarterback, and we haven't had that problem for 14 years. So it's gonna be interesting for sure. And obviously, it was really sad. Drew Brees has done so much for the city of New Orleans and the Saints as a whole. So yeah, just yeah. I mean, if you know anything about Drew Brees' story, you know that he's like one of the hardest working dudes ever, and that his impact on the city of New Orleans is far greater than just his impact on the football field. So, seeing him retire and hang up the cleats was super sad for the city as a whole, and for Saints fans all across America and the world for that matter. But yeah, it was in my opinion kind of expected. It's just, I don't know. It was expected, but at the same time, it doesn't make it any less heartbreaking.
Yeah, and it is. He is one of those rare quarterbacks as well that has such a personal connection with the city that he played in, because there's not many quarterbacks that can say that, especially with everything that he did during Hurricane Katrina. But then also maybe towards the end of it, he did sort of ruffle a couple of feathers, especially with his comments around the Black Lives Matter movement and his comparison to kneeling at the national anthem.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, I don't know if that has too much of an impact on like his overall legacy and things like that. I think Drew Brees is always going to just kind of be known as a guy who is always just a community guy and a very just overall well respected guy. And yeah, I mean those comments he made were obviously unsettling, things like that. But I think it was just pure ignorance, and then he obviously owned up to it, and then he became educated in the matter, and just like a lot of people in the world, a lot of us were very uneducated, with the whole movement going on and things like that until we became educated. And then, so it's just Drew Brees, he's in the limelight. He's being asked all these questions, didn't really have time to process an answer, and so he said something out of character, which is, I mean, how many times can you say Drew Brees said something out of character? Probably that's the only time, really. I mean,
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, he messed up, but he also owned up that he messed up, and he came back, and he apologized publicly, and he became educated in the matter, and I think he grew a lot from it and learned a lot from it as well.
Exactly. And I think I agree with you, Michael. I think he set a good example, right? We're not all politicians. We're not trained in what we say. And you can have certain opinions, but what we ask of everybody is to go out and educate yourself afterwards and maybe become more informed before you really stick to your guns. Sticking with Drew Brees and the Saints quarterbacks at the moment, I've got kind of two questions for you. The first one is, what did you make of his last season? Definitely he had a really rough start. Slowly got into it and found his feet under him again, but I don't know. I heard rumors at the end that his arm strength, he couldn't even get to sign the dotted line. He actually had to sign under the dotted line. Couldn't get that pen up there. Was that a frustration for you watching the Saints last season?
Yeah, he definitely wasn't the same Drew Brees that we'd seen in years past, and it's just kind of a bummer because we kind of wish he would have maybe just hung up the cleats a couple years ago. We'd probably be in much better shape at the quarterback position right now. But we wanted to get that one last ring for Drew, and it never happened. Because we'd probably have Tom Brady right now, because I know that there was a lot of interest in him coming to New Orleans if Drew Brees was gone. But the fact that he never left kind of just, we kind of washed away our chances of getting Tom Brady in town. But with that being said, yeah, it was obviously a bummer seeing the quarterback that you've seen just tear up the league for over a decade, struggle to get the ball down the field to a very talented, underrated receiving unit. But at the same time, he was also injured. I mean, the dude literally could have have lost his life on the football field. He broke, like, I think it was like 12 ribs or something like that. Still threw a touchdown pass with his broken ribs. I mean, he punctured a lung. I mean, the dude literally, his season could have ended way sooner than it did. And, he came back because he knew it was going to be his last year. Everybody knew it was going to be his last year. And he came back and he still tried to, fight for his teammates, try to, help us get a couple playoff wins, make a run at the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, we got that first playoff win against Chicago, but we didn't get one in the second round against Tampa Bay. So, it's unfortunate, but, at the same time, all good things have to come to an end. So, Drew Brees, I think that his last couple years with the Saints should not reflect on how big of an impact Drew Brees had on the New Orleans Saints as a whole. I know a lot of people like to just kind of judge about the recent performances and things like that. But if you look at Drew Brees' career as a whole and you line it up against guys like Tom Brady, excluding the Super Bowls, obviously, but if you line it up to a guy like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or, any other quarterbacks that you consider great, his numbers are right up there above theirs in a lot of categories. So I think Drew Brees certainly made his impact felt in New Orleans. And I don't think his last couple of years, while it did stink to see him struggle to get the ball down the field, and it was very visible. I think I'd never seen Drew Brees really, animated or upset in very many interviews in my life. But, seeing him kind of animated in some interviews this past season was obviously very heartbreaking as a Saints fan, because you could tell that he was a little bit messed up mentally and physically. And yeah, it definitely stunk a little bit.